What is going on, guys, and welcome to CSS tutorial. In this video we're going to look at what we can do with the buttons. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a button, just a single button, and this is going to be a boring HTML button, right? But let's just copy it, like, I don't know, 4 times over here, and over here I'm going to write CSS, and over here I'm also going to write CSS, and we'll see what we can do with a CSS buttons, what we couldn't do with a basic HTML buttons. So over here I'm obviously going to create a ID or a class or something like that. So I'm just going to say over here, I'm going to say class, and it's going to be 1, and over here I'm going to add a class 2, and here it's going to be class 3. Pretty straightforward over here. And now the first thing what we're going to do is obviously we're going to go and start styling, right? And this is left over from our previous video, so don't mind that. And over here we would have a class 1, and over here I would obviously the first thing that we can do is actually change the background color for our buttons, right? So I'm going to start over here with a something like this, and I'm going to create a class number 2 and have the same thing, like some type of background color. So over here we create a background color. Also, I'm just going to copy this, and over here we're going to set it, and let's say we're going to have it like yellow or something, right? Yellow. And the last thing what we're going to do is actually we're going to just copy this and start a new one and paste it over here, and this is going to be 3. And over here we're going to say that background color is going to be red, right? Now another thing that obviously now that we know CSS, we can actually start changing the size of the buttons, right? And we can actually do that by actually changing the size of the text, right? So over here, if I would say that I would want my font size over here like this, and I would want my font size to be like 20 pixels, you can see how this button right away got bigger. And obviously if I would go over here and just copy this and paste it over here and say that this would be a 24 pixels, and the last one I'm just going to copy this again and paste it, this one would be like 28. So now you can see what we can do with this, and for some reason it didn't do anything. So let's see where's the mistake. Oh, the mistake is over here. So now you can see how I have different sizes of the buttons. So that's one of the things that we can do with CSS. Now let's keep going, and let's actually add a padding over here. So we can say that padding should be, let's say, around 10 pixels, right? Something like this. And obviously we can change the padding also. So I'll take this, and I'm just going to copy this, start a new line, paste it over here, set it this one to 12, something like this. Probably we should make it a bigger screen now because now they don't fit. And the last thing over here, I'm just going to set it to paste it, and I'm going to set it that this is going to be like, I don't know, like 14, right? So now we can see what we can do with this, that we have a different sizes and different paddings of the buttons. Now next thing what we can do is actually we can round corners. So we have border radius over here, a radius, and we could say that let's start with 5 pixels over here. We can do something like this. Again, we're just going to copy this, and we're going to set multiple styles. Copy, start a new line, paste it over here, and now we have 3 of them, right? So in here we're going to do like 20 pixels, so a little bit wild. And the next thing we're going to be do completely round, and what we're going to do, we're just going to set it 50%. So now you can see that we can actually technically make the borders completely round. Now let's give our borders colors, right? Because that's another thing that we learned. And over here I would say border, and I would say that it would be 2 pixels, solid, I don't know, black, something like this, right? So we can set it like this. And again, I'm not going to be changing this one much around because we already know what to do. So now that we're done with the borders, let's actually create a hover options when we are hovering over buttons. So over here, I'm just going to say that button, and when we're hovering over the button, we would want a probably background to be white over here. So background color over here is white, and this should be probably stay like that, white. And what we also can do right away, we can actually add a transition duration. Remember transitions? So let's say over here, I would do a transition, and I would say the transition should take, I don't know, 1 second, right? So only when I'm hovering, it's not right away going to turn white. It's actually going to take a little bit, right? So you can see that it waits a little bit, like 1 second, and only then it's actually turning white, right? That's another thing that we learn actually with the CSS. Now, another thing that what we can do to all the buttons, we can actually add a box shadow, right? That was another thing. So we go over here and we say box shadow, and we say 5 pixels, 5 pixels, 5 pixels blur, I guess 2, and we're gonna say, I don't know, green. And again, I'm just gonna copy that to all of them. So if we go over here, and if we're gonna copy that, like here, like this, copy, and paste over here, and paste over here. So we can add actually a box over here. Now, another thing that we can do is actually, we can add opacity, obviously, but right now, as we're going to be hovering, it's going to be turning, let's say, white. So let's maybe change this around. Let's maybe change this around to blue or something like that. So when we're hovering, it's going to be blue. And let's add a opacity over here, opacity. And let's say, well, it's going to be 0.6, something like that. So you can see that it's going to be lighter right now because it's not going to be as dark. Well, actually, I messed it up here. You can see right now it's going to be not as dark. You can see how it's actually opacity is working. And another thing is what we could do is actually we could have a cursor not allowed, right? So, but actually, I'm going to do this on this button over here, because it's just, let's say that we were going to tell our user not to touch this button. So we have the boring button, and I'm just going to give it ID, and I'm going to say boring over here. And now that we have a boring, let's say quick edit. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to add a cursor, and we're going to say not allowed. So we're here and see what happens, right? You can see what's happening, that it's actually saying that the cursor is not allowed, which is pretty cool. Now, another thing that we actually can do right now is actually add a width to the buttons, right? So what I'm going to do over here, I'm going to go back to the main CSS and go to and I'm going to select the whole buttons, actually. I'm just going to do all the buttons in this case. I'm just going to create more space a little bit. And I'm going to say that if, let's say I'm saying button, then I would want a width, right? And what I could do over here, I could do the width, and I could do, let's say, like 30 pixels. So now they're smaller. If I would want, I could have like 100 pixels. They will obviously, you can see how they're getting bigger. And if I'm adding like 200 pixels, now you can see how big they are. So that's another thing that we can do, and I'm just going to leave it at like 50. Well, no, that's a little bit too small. 100 pixels over here like this. And now let's look at another thing that we can do. We can obviously right now, we can group them together. So if I'm sitting right now right here, you can see that they're all like what? They're sitting in a line, right? But let's say that if I'd want them to be actually displayed vertically, I could say display, and I could say display, and we would display block, right? So now you can see right away how they're all sitting in a block. But if we wanted to obviously float them, let's say to the left, we can also do that. So we have a float option for all the buttons, and we can say left, something like this. But obviously right now they're taking too much time, too much space on the screen. So now we have to move the screen in order to see that. This is gonna be it for this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.